Thanks. Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 11th Council meeting for 2024. I'll commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Butchla people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Opening prayer. Let us pray together, each of us according to our individual beliefs. Grant to this council wisdom, understanding, and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of the community. Apologies and leave of absence. Do we have a mover that council approve the leave of absence for Councillor John Whelan for the ordinary council meeting? Move Councillor Cosgrove, second Councillor Farage. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest? If you think of one during the meeting, please raise your hand. Mayoral minutes. There are no mayoral minutes. Item 5.1. Confirmation. We're doing it as a separate now, right? It's we'll handle the 5.1 confirmation of minutes of meeting, pages 5 to 16. Is there a mover that they be confirmed? Councillor Byrne, second Councillor Cosgrove. Any speakers or questions? Put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 6.1, open resolutions register, 17 to 40. Are there any questions on this one? Councillor O'Keefe.
I just have a question around how matters get taken off the resolutions register. How is an assessment made that the matter's been dealt with?
So I'll respond to that, and I'll get the director or the meeting secretary, correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that once the council makes a decision, it's recorded in the outstanding resolution register, it's taken off the outstanding resolution register if two things occur. One, the report has been provided back to council, if it's requested a report, or if the information that's been requested has been provided to councillors. So it really depends on the nature of the resolution.
So it could either be an information or a report?
Yeah, depending on the nature of the outstanding action. And typically, it's and invariably it's a report that comes back to council.
Yep.
I just had a quick question about the one on 19 about rescinding the conservation areas rates concession policy. The latest update is that a council report will be prepared following concept forum discussions as part of the planning scheme review that relates to the single aspect of it being town planning amendments. When can we expect that report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's currently scheduled in February following questions at the concept forum. I have arranged, I acknowledge the feedback that this is probably taking a lot longer than it should have, so I have actually arranged to catch up with all the relevant officers the week after next to try and push this along and make sure that we do meet that February expectation.
And the other aspects that aren't town planning aspects?
Yes, I've arranged that meeting with not just my planning team, but with sustainability staff, with national environment staff more broadly.
Is there a mover that council receive and note the open resolutions register? Councillor Phil Truscott, second Councillor Paul Truscott. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 7.1, community presentations. CEO.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just bear with me. Mr. Mayor, and councillors, there were 5 people that presented today as part of the community presentations. The first person was Mr. Peter Wilmot, who raised concerns in relation to Xavier College student parking in Endeavour Way. The second speaker was Ms. Donna Stackman on behalf of the Harvey Bay Art Society, who raised concerns in relation to public safety and accessibility issues regarding Gallery 5 at 5 Sandy Street, Urangan. The third speaker was Mr. Scott Ryan, who spoke in opposition to MCU 24/0065. The fourth speaker was Mr. Ron Black, who spoke in relation to the lack of available zoned land for rural residential land in Tyro and requested this be corrected in the planning scheme amendment. And the final speaker was Ms. Kerry Edwards, who raised concerns in relation to COVID-19 vaccinations and alleged possible DNA contamination. That's my verbal report, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a mover that the council note the verbal report? Move Councillor Govers, second Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Put motion, all in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Petitions 9.1, Councillor Farage.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to table a petition with the chief petitioner being Cindy Ryan. It has 233 signatures and is regarding opposition to MCU 24/0065. And I ask that the petition be received.
Yep. So this is subject to a current application. Would it not be better if it be received and referred to the planning office?
Well, it'll be received, it'll be referred to the planning department. Will probably treat it as a submission, as within the submission period, and it'll be considered as part of the development application.
Is that definitely the case?
Subject to the timing, because I don't know that it's not on the December agenda, and because the meetings are short, the report's probably already written, and because I think the December agenda closes if it hasn't closed already, so.
It'll be responded to in the case of Mr Mayor.
We will definitely consider it, and I suspect it's issues that have already been raised in other submissions as well.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that the petition be received? Councillor Sanderson, any speakers or questions? I put motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Any further petitions? Item 9.2, request to upgrade the car park at Gallery 5, Harvey Bay Art Society for improved disability access. This is page 41 to 44. Councillor O'Keefe, are you moving the recommendation?
I'd like to ask a question
Yep.
first. Thank you, Mr Mayor. So on page 41, in the officer's recommendation, it lists the council advised the chief petitioner that a project to construct curb and channel at Sandy Street, Urangan, has been listed on council's 10-year capital works program for consideration, and the scope of work includes the upgrade to the car park at Gallery 5, Harvey Bay Art Society. Now, it was my understanding that in the capital plan, talks about car parking on the street, not a car park as such. Is that right?
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to answer that? Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. Yeah, so as part of the curb and channel works, so obviously when you do curb and channel, there is parallel parking on the road on both sides. So that will facilitate car parking in front of the gallery and as well as other property frontages as well. So it's the full street parking incorporated in the curb and channel design.
Yeah, so we're not talking about a separate car park,
No,
we're
that's-
talking about on the street.
No, it's going to be on-street car park on, fronting all those properties.
I just wanted to be very clear about that.
Mr Mayor, could I just seek clarification of that, because that's appears to be contrary to the recommendation, which specifically says, and the scope of work includes the upgrade to the car park at Gallery 5. So my understanding is that in addition to the curb and channelling work that the Director of Infrastructure has highlighted that will be considered in the Capital Works program, this resolution also asks us to consider and to list for consideration the upgrade of the car park. It doesn't mean that the council will do it, it simply means that this work will be listed in, for consideration in the budget process, and it's up to council when it determines its annual budget whether it commits funding or otherwise to both the curb and channel and the car park.
Mr Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Chapman.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to request further information. If we could actually get some of this, have a look at the design that's in the budget for like a rough design of what's allocated for this area.
Yeah, CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. That will be provided when we go through and discuss it, the budget process. The purpose of this recommendation is to simply allow that to be listed for consideration. The detailed design of that will be, we can bring that back as part of the budget process if the council is committed or prepared to allocate funds to that.
And Councillor Truscott.
I understand the item on page 41 properly, and I understand that totally. But what the Director for Infrastructure said, the curbing car park is being done like now, and this is for 10 years. Have I got that right?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. If you look at page 42, it is in the 10-year plan in the 28-29, which is, I've made some comments there about subject to change. But the recommendation says that, be listed for, because every year that's the process we go through, reprioritize the projects that is in the 10-year plan.
Sorry, I was talking about the curb and Challeney, not the car park. Oh, it's still the both, okay. All right, got it.
There's
Thank
both.
you.
Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll speak for the officer's recommendation.
Yep, we'll just get a seconder first. Is there a seconder? Councillor Govers? Yep.
I'll speak for the officer's recommendation, noting that point 2 clearly makes the point that the upgrade of the car park is not included in the current year's budget.
Yep. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.1, Environment and Sustainability Advisory Meeting Minutes, for pages 45 to 73. Is there a mover that we receive and note? Councillor O'Keefe. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove. Any speakers or questions? Yeah, Councillor O'Keefe.
I'll speak to this. Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the minutes of the Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting held on the 3rd of September 2024. The Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee is a voluntary advisory committee whose members are drawn from a diverse cross-section of the Fraser Coast community. The purpose of the advisory committee is to discuss and provide advice or recommendations on environmentally relevant matters within the Fraser Coast. The officer's recommendation is that Council receive and note the minutes of the Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee held on the 3rd of September 2024.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Are there any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.2, the Fraser Coast Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes, pages 74 to 76. Is there a mover that we receive and note? Councillor Byrne. Second, Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.3 at page 77, the Water and Waste Services Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Move Councillor O'Keefe. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Councillor O'Keefe.
Mr Mayor, the Water and Waste Services Advisory Committee is a local government committee appointed under section 264 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to provide governance, oversight and performance monitoring of the Water and Waste Directorate. The minutes of the Advisory Committee meeting held on the 20th of September 2024 are presented to Council in accordance with the Committee's charter. The recommendation is that Council receive and note the minutes of the Water and Waste Services Advisory Committee meeting held on the 18th of October 2024 as detailed in the attachment.
Thank you. Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 10.4 at pages 82 to 92, informal meetings, records of matters discussed. Are there any speakers or questions on this? Is there a mover that Council receive and note? Councillor Byrne. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.1.1, Council Leave of Absence. Councillor Phil Truscott, pages 93 to 94. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Paul Truscott, second Councillor Govers. Put the motion. All in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.1, Council Meeting Schedule, pages 95 to 98. Councillor O'Keefe, you're moving the officer's recommendation. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Byrne, you wish to speak to this?
Is there an alternative?
Yeah,
resolution?
yeah, I will be moving an alternate, well, I'll be foreshadowing an alternate motion.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
haven't
look,
yet.
I'm happy to speak to it now, to the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Purpose-built facilities provide for better access to all members of community to council meetings. These facilities were designed to accommodate community members who have mobility issues, and the facilities are centrally located. Those two facilities are the Hervey Bay Council Chambers and the Maryborough Council Chambers. For reasons of providing better access to the wider community, we've made the decision to hold our meetings in Maryborough at their purpose-built facilities and in Hervey Bay at purpose-built facilities. So I'd like to advance the officer's recommendation that council approve the ordinary meetings and that they rotate between Maryborough and Hervey Bay council chambers.
Thank you. I'll speak against the motion and foreshadow a motion. Does everybody have the run sheet? Yeah. So you've got the motion, which basically slightly changes point 1 to allow it to be in other locations determined by the CEO in consultation with councillors. It keeps clauses 2, 3, 4, and 5 as it is, and then amends clause 6, again, in consultation with councillors to arrange for the May meeting and the July meeting to be in a smaller community. Yeah, so non-Hervey Bay, non-Maryborough, to be determined at a later date. The purpose of this, and we used to do this, we did this for many, many years. We didn't do it at the very first meeting of this new council earlier in the year. It was decided that we wouldn't. And at that time, I suggested that we should, and again was outvoted. But this, I think, has worked very well in the past. We have met at a wide range of community halls, from Riverheads out to T-Bar, Boonaroo, Tyro. We had a meeting in Glenwood, I believe. We met in a range of different places where we had a lot of people. I know right now, here in Hervey Bay, we have one member of the public in the gallery from Tyro. So the entirety of the people who are here in Hervey Bay right now for the council meeting is somebody from Tyro, who's travelled from Tyro to be here at the meeting in Hervey Bay. I also know that in our public presentations, we had somebody who drove from Glenwood. So we have, areas in the Fraser Coast that exist outside of 77 Tavistock Street and Maryborough City Hall. As a council, we represent the entire region. We have a wide range of communities right across the region where we should be seen to be meeting, to be serving, working with them. This allows us to, just for 2 seconds, doesn't pass, then we move to the foreshadowed motion. Is there a speaker in favour of the actual motion? Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I know what you're trying to do is trying to get the council out into the communities, but I look at the extra cost and everything it is to do this, to send our IT crew and everything like that. At the moment, our live streaming and everything is all set up within the council. Now, I'm only putting a rough figure. It could be $2,000 to $3,000 or even more to hold a meeting. And I've actually been to all these meetings outside of, like, we went to a Ramrah and we went outside to down to Poona. Poona was probably one of the better events that was people went along to. But what I'd like to say is, councillors, we've got to look at where we're spending money and what's good for our staff. And to having staff to pack up gear, we get out to community halls. We've got trouble live streaming. We've got trouble with getting on the internet and everything like that. I feel that I would rather have our meetings within the Maryborough chambers and in the Hervey Bay chambers, and I'd rather do that. And then if we want to have a community meeting out at a hall, we go out to one of their meetings and as a council, and we go out and we interact with the community out there. I think we're better off to do that. Find out when there's a meeting down at Glenwood, or find out when there's a meeting in Maryborough or sort of Chamber of Commerce in Tyro. Let's go to those. That is not costing the ratepayers money. This here, by transferring all our staff and vehicles and everything to go to a meeting, just to have a meeting in an area which are poorly attended, because if the Aremra, if it wasn't for the ladies that were making the sandwiches and plus someone was talking, come along to talk about their caravan park, the crowd was very small. So I know what the Mayor's trying to do, but I think let's try and interact ourselves as councillors to organise some community meetings, and let's as a council go to their meeting and show that we're interested in the community that way, and let's keep our meetings standard so our staff can just work along with what they know. Thank you.
So, further speaker against, Councillor Phil Trescott.
Well, I suppose you could say I'm against that one because I'm sort of for the amended one because it says in consultation with councillors. So does that mean that it's still, last time I went, there was only 2 people there and they were speakers. We do have community chats every month except for December and January, which, you know, not many people come to those two. And also if we go out to these places, as I said, the last one I went to, there was problems with even the online. So that's stopping people from watching it online. But because you've said here in consultation with councils, that means perhaps we're going to have a bit more discussions, is it?
Yeah, we would need discussions. I mean, I haven't booked the halls. Like, I couldn't say we're going to be in the Tyro Community Hall on the 23rd of July because it might be booked for a function. It's out of necessity that it has to be in consultation with councillors.
Well, therefore, I'll vote against the officer's recommendation at this stage.
Any further, any further speakers in favour of the motion that's been moved? Councillor Cosgrove?
Question first,
Yes.
Mr Mayor, to the CEO, who I wish to defer to Director of Organisational Services, but do you have any ability to accurately provide a potential cost for going to a regional centre where we're not set up for live streaming, etc.?
Yeah, I will defer to the Director of Organisational Services on that through the Chair.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Cosgrove, through you, Mr Mayor. We had recently provided a briefing note to Council. I think last time this matter came up last year, and we've just asked staff to update that, given some of the questions at the agenda forum last week. At the bottom end, it's probably around $1,500 to $2,500. Now that depends on the capacity and the facilities available at that site. You know, that could extend up to maybe $5,000 or $6,000 if we need to hire in all of the AV equipment and the microphones and the amplifiers and potentially furniture and the likes, and it really depends on the location. Our governance team over time, as we have exercised this in the past, have got quite a detailed checklist to go and inspect the facility prior to us going there, check on its connectivity and the like. And since a couple of experiences we've had with very poor internet connection and the need to live stream meetings, there is an option for us to record the meetings and load it up on the internet later. But if we want to live stream it, our IT department have done some further research, and we could purchase some satellite connection equipment. That would move into $10,000 or so, plus rental fees for us to have a more reliable connectivity to the internet. But that's clearly an option that we would consider if council wanted to pursue this. So, in the range of, $2,000 to $5,000 plus staff time to inspect the facility, set up the facility, bump out the facility at the end of the event. Staff time doesn't cost us any more money, but it just means they're not doing other things that they would ordinarily do.
Thank you. Mr Chair, I'd like to speak in favour of the motion as moved, but in doing so would like to commend you for essentially there is merit to what you're suggesting, but I think we can achieve it in ways that are more cost effective and potentially have better interaction with the smaller communities as we go out to meet them. in this meeting in 11.2.2, the next item, we're dealing with the essentially the compulsory things that councillors must attend as per the motion that's passed each month. There's no reason why the mayor or a councillor couldn't put the all councillor community chats on that so that councillors had to seek formal leave to not attend those. For example, we could also take an agenda forum that doesn't have a streaming component out to these, and then it's just our time and driving out there and the officers driving out there. So I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. As much as I would like to take a meeting out to Tyro, because Retro Espresso at Tyro is the only one that stocks the Turkish Delight, which is awesome. I do think there's more cost-effective ways and other ways and potentially more engaging ways for us to get out into our smaller communities, many of which I love. I'd love to go to Bonnaroo, as I said, I'd love to go to Tyro, Puna, but I think probably there's more efficient and effective ways we can do that. I'm supporting the motion as moved.
Councillor Sanderson.
Mr Mayor, I'll be speaking against the original motion. We cannot forget that we are, and I understand people or colleagues have the sentiment that costs, yes, they can be considered, but at the same time, we're here to serve the people and not expect the people to always come to us. And to me, I think that if this is a clear demonstration to the community that we are willing to go to them, not sit in chambers, and I'm not saying this is, of course, where we need to have our meetings, but this clearly demonstrates to the community that we are willing to go out to them and listen. Communities change, pressures change, sentiment changes in community. And I think going forward in the next 4 years, we've got to remember that what those communities go through, it could be big issues that if we're in that community at the time those things are happening, it's good to be there, not expect them to come to us. So I'm definitely speaking against it. So I think it's a clear demonstration that we can go to the people, not expect them to come to us. And for a little bit of money, I'm all, for me it's principle as well. I'm all for going to the people, not expecting them to come to you.
Any further speakers in favour? Councillor Gobbers.
I have a question. So when we go out prior to the meeting, if we're doing it out in the community hall, is access part of that strategy to find out if it's doable, if we can get our disability services people through? How does that work?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Gomes, through you, Mr Mayor. It is part of our assessment to understand what the facility offers and what limitations there may be there. It wouldn't necessarily, I guess it's information that we would then bring back and inform the councillors as to whether or not it would be suitable for a meeting. So if it doesn't have suitable disability access, it doesn't necessarily mean you couldn't hold a meeting there, but I guess that's a decision that we need to make. Most of the community facilities have disability access, but facility before we attend to ensure that the date and the availability of the facility is there, and we usually get those community groups, if they're able to provide catering for the meeting as well, if that's something that they would be willing to do. So,
Thank you.
Are there any further speakers in favour? So what was that? Councillor Farage.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I echo my colleagues' comments, and I completely understand where Councillor Sanderson is coming from, but I also do wonder if us having our formal meeting out in their small communities is the best way to connect with them when they would actually be listening to us speak rather than us listening to their concerns. And the only way that they could provide their concerns would be to sign up for community presentations. And again, there's no two-way interaction with that. We do only thank them at the end. I would rather see the respective councillors for those smaller communities ask their colleagues to host their monthly community chats there, and then the onus is on us to go out there as a team and listen to the community and take note of their concerns. And I note that recently Councillor Byrne had her community chat in Barham Heads, and I think pretty well all of us were there. And, it was really good to get out there and experience what those residents had to tell us and their concerns, and to have a look at their facilities such as their meeting grounds and where they hold their yoga classes, etc. So I'll be speaking for the motion.
Any further speakers against?
And
question.
Councillor Truscott?
I'd just like to raise a question. I suppose I'll have to sort of speak to it as well, in that, because normally I would be in support of the officer's recommendation for the reasons stated, because I do believe in those reasons. However, I think because it's been an issue that comes up regularly, I think I would ask of yourself, Mr. Mayor, as the person putting forward the foreshadowed motion, if you were willing to add a point 7 to the motion that indicated that accurate costings were kept and allocated so that we know exactly what it does cost, so that we actually have figures and something to base that off of for future, then, because that would help me understand, because I would then be in support of that as a foreshadowing motion.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to add to clause 7 that accurate records be kept of all costs incurred in having meetings outside of the chambers. And perhaps I could ask a question of the director.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Point of order.
Point of order. We seem to be discussing a motion that is not on the table, and we're making up an alternate foreshadowed motion on the fly. Can we just get through this first motion first? Like,
I need to
proper
understand
process.
that to know how I was going to go forward.
Yeah, I'm happy to change my foreshadowed motion to add a clause 7. I don't see how that incurs good debate. And perhaps I could ask a question of the director or the CEO then. Do you believe that it would be possible to limit the actual out-of-pocket expenses to the room hire, which goes to the community group if it is not a council facility, and any catering costs that would go directly to that community group?
Thanks for the question, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't think that would be possible. We need microphones, we need amplification in those rooms. If we continue to live stream the meetings, which I think is part of our standing orders, we need that equipment there that if we don't have it available, we need to hire that equipment. So those things come at a cost.
Yeah. So because obviously we don't have amplification in this room, or even in the council chambers.
The microphones and the speakers are in.
That's not amplification.
It does amplify the signal through the room, yes, and it picks up the signal for the live stream.
Yeah, for the recording, yeah. So you are able to we would be able to get a quote for how much that costs.
Yes, we are, Mr. Mayor, and we have some costs. I have a detailed costing of the most recent off-site meeting, which was the one held in July at the Harvey Bay Golf Club, and including catering, that meeting cost $2,532.
Catering to the private company, yeah.
The advice that I've received on that one, that the PA system hire cost $820 in that cases, but there was quite a bit of equipment in the room that we were able to connect to and utilise. So again, the costs on it for an off-site facility, the estimates are it could be up to $3,000 or $4,000, depending on the nature of the setup and the equipment that we hire. So we do have costs for those previous meetings. I don't have the detailed costings.
For clarification, those costs don't include the considerable staff time prior to and during the meeting, which would be much higher than the $2,500.
They're simply out-of-pocket costs for the organisation. The staff costs will be paying their wages anyway, but as I mentioned earlier, there could be up to 4 or 5 staff that would spend a day or two inspecting the facility, setting up, making these arrangements. That time would be spent doing other things if the meetings were held in our 2 main facilities that are already established.
Are there any further speakers or questions?
Do I get a right to reply?
Yeah, once everyone who wants to speak.
One question.
Yeah.
If this motion is lost, we go to an alternative motion. If the alternative motion is lost,
move to the next agenda item. We get the year off.
So do we get the year off?
That's right. Yeah.
I think if the foreshadowed motion is, if this motion is lost and the foreshadowed motion is lost, I would expect that somebody would foreshadow during that debate another motion. If you had councillors, it's interesting actually, the Local Government Act doesn't require the council to make a decision. It just simply requires under section 254B, I think it is, of the regulations, but must at least once in each year publish a notice of the days and times. So we can still have council meetings and no, you wouldn't get the year off.
Is there any, Councillor Cosgrove?
I have a question. for either the director or CEO. What is the process for, if the motion was passed as written, what would be the process for council to change a meeting location after that fact, if that motion was passed?
It doesn't, as I said before, section 254B just says that you need to have public notice of meetings. I can't find a reference in the Act that says the council must resolve the day and time. It says that you must at least once a year publish the notice of days and times. If there was a view, my view is that with respect to council meetings, that the council should make a decision on that. So if, for example, a month down the track, the council's felt that, say, next July's council meeting, it should really be held in a certain location, we'd preempt that by having a report to the May meeting to allow the council to debate that. The council can move a motion to determine another location at any point in time if they wish.
And I just had a question for Councillor Phil Truscott. You've got an alternate motion. Do you want to talk about, I think that would, because we can't have them stacked up. You can only deal with an alternate motion, one foreshadow motion. Do you want to raise that and see if that's acceptable to the mover as a friendly amendment?
It's the same motion.
It won't be, no, it changes the 19th to the 26th.
Yes.
So Councillor O'Keefe who was seconded? Councillor Byrne have seconded the list that says the November meeting will be on the 26th of November. I understand you want to make it the 19th.
Correct.
Do you want to ask them if they're happy with that?
Yes, well, I'll tell you my reasons. My reasons are very simple. We move December meeting always early, but if we leave it as it is currently, it's 5 weeks between October and November, and it's 2 weeks between November and December. If you use my alternative motion, it's 4 weeks and then 3 weeks, which makes a lot more sense. Very simple change. I didn't realise it was the same number, but you're right, it's the same number.
So can I just ask the mover if he's happy with that as a
I
friendly
just have a
amendment?
question
Yep.
first. So at an operational level, is this a significant change?
Thanks for the question, Councillor O'Keefe. No, we can accommodate that timeframe.
Is the seconder happy with that?
Yes.
Okay, so that will become a motion. Yeah, Councillor Cosgrove?
Question to the CEO or relevant director. If council was to pass this motion and then in August next year, we were dealing with a $500 million application to build a water slide, or wet and wild at Bonnaroo, could council then resolve to move the meeting to Bonnaroo due to the significance of the decision being made in that meeting?
Yes.
Any further
Mr Mayor, the 19th of November too is International Men's Day, so I just think that...
I have one more question, Mr Mayor. If meetings are set in regional locales, is there a guarantee that they will deal with a number of items relating to that locale during that monthly meeting?
The simple answer is no. So the agenda is set, and there may or may not be agenda items that relate to the locality within which the council is having its meeting.
Thank you. Any further speakers or questions? Councillor O'Keefe, you have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to thank my colleagues for their support of the officer's recommendation. I think we can all agree with the fundamental principle that purpose-built facilities provide better access to all members of our community because they are purpose-built. They are centrally located and they are better at accommodating people of varying abilities. That is one of the reasons why I'm supporting the officer's recommendation. The second reason is that I appreciate that there is an appetite for council to be seen out in the community and to engage more with the broader community. But I feel that we can achieve that end by continuing our monthly community chats that are always well attended. I'm actually hosting one this Saturday that all councillors will be attending. I think that if you want to engage more broadly with the community, that's the way to go about it. Use the purpose-built facilities that we have. They were designed to accommodate for this kind of activity, so I'll be supporting the officer's recommendations.
I'll put the motion, move Councillor O'Keefe, second Councillor Byrne, all in favour? 6, all opposed? 4, that's carried 6-4. The next item is 11.2.2, councillor meeting attendance for December 2024, pages 99 to 100. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Phil Truscott, seconded Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Straightforward. I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.3, the Audit and Risk Committee remuneration, pages 101 to 103. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Byrne, is there a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove. Any speakers or questions? I'll just quickly ask, this is benchmarked against similar size council audit committees?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cosgrove?
Yeah, I'll speak briefly to the motion and say that, it's obviously a statutory requirement that we have this audit and risk committee, but, from the presentation that they gave at the start of our term, they obviously do a whole heap of fundamental and important work to make sure that council is fulfilling its statutory obligations and managing risk appropriately, and that means that we need people with the right expertise on the panels, and that's why benchmarking it against those other councils, as you've mentioned, is really important to making sure that we're getting the right people in these roles to do this very, very important work.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.4, the Audit and Risk Committee and Internal Audit Policy and Charter Review, 103 to 155. Is there a mover that we adopt these? Councillor Byrne. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cosgrove. Any speakers or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.2.5, Council Employment Initiatives for Individuals with Disabilities, page 156 to 163. Is there a mover that we receive a note? Councillor Phil Truscott, you're moving?
Yeah, and I want to speak as well.
And Councillor Paul Truscott, you're seconding? You're speaking? Yep.
No, I'm not completely au fait with, on page 157, current status, section 3, where it says, council maintains, recruit the best person for the job based on the individual merit of that person. I mean, I'm all for everything in that report, but I am absolutely like to employ people based on their ability to do the job and not on their physical ability or their gender or colour or anything like that. But does the new, because I've employed people with disabilities and based on their talents, does this new status change that? I know it's a hard question. Change that paragraph 3 where it says based on people's ability.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Truscott. Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm just not sure what you mean, Councillor Truscott, by new status. So we haven't changed our policy with respect to that. We do have a merit-based recruitment process. So as you've described, the people that are the best for the job have the job. Our policy does allow, if there are individuals that have disabilities that require some amendment to our facilities,
yeah, that's fine.
Within reasonable cost, we will make those.
That's talking about the environment
nominate them
rather than their talent. That's fine.
Yes.
Yep, thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor O'Keefe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just got a question about page 159. In the proposal, it talks about it is proposed that Council continues with its current practices as detailed in this report. There are opportunities to identify areas of improvement in current and future ways of working. Now, I've just read through that list, and what's missing from that list is a call for us to remove the actual physical barriers that prevent people from working in our workplaces. And I think that that's really important to point out. I'm not sure why it was missed and it wasn't put in there, but can I be assured that we are, Mr. CEO, that we are removing barriers if they are removing barriers to improve employment opportunities?
Absolutely, it goes without saying, and I think it's embodied in the report earlier on in the comments that the Director of Organisational Services, if there are barriers that prevent us from employing somebody with disability, then we look to removing those barriers. The challenges that we have is that many of our facilities, including this building that we're in, are not disability compliant. And we need to address that, and that is being addressed with the new community hub, which includes the library and the admin centre. And when we're looking for alternative accommodation at Rocky Street, we have never been in a position where we have not been able to recruit somebody because of their disability, if they were the best person for the job. And we would look to, if we had the best person for the job was someone that had a disability and there were barriers, physical barriers for them to be able to do their job, we would look to removing those barriers.
Okay, thank you. Satisfied with that.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.1, amendment to Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee terms of reference and call for nominations for community members, page 164 to 174. Councillor Cosgrove, you're moving something different?
No, Councillor O'Keefe's going to move the...
Okay, Councillor O'Keefe, what are you moving?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, Councillor Chapman? Yeah. Yeah, Councillor O'Keefe. Councillor Cosgrove?
I'd like to move a friendly amendment
Okay.
that removes the words "or cultural" on page 171 of the agenda from 1A. That's ultimately due to the discussions that were had at the agenda forum last week, when we had four different people tend their interpretations of what "or cultural" meant, and it essentially was 4 different interpretations. And I think it's really important that the terms of reference for a committee are clear, and essentially that words mean what they mean, and people can interpret get a clear interpretation, and that's why I think it's necessary. So I would like to move that friendly amendment. If
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
acceptable.
is that acceptable? Seconder? Okay, that's the motion now. Do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. The Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee, at its meeting on the 3rd of December 2024, resolved to amend the terms of reference to better reflect the committee's membership and revised purpose after council resolved to expand the former Environmental Advisory Group to the Environment and Sustainability Committee earlier this year. As both community representative positions are now vacant, it is also proposed to call for nominations from individual members of the community who have personal and/or professional experience and involvement in and understanding of environmental and/or sustainability issues. That's a bit of a mouthful. I support the officer's recommendation, which endorses the revised Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee terms of reference, and also point 2, which is a call for nominations from individual community members interested in appointment as community representatives in accordance with the Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee's terms of reference.
Are there any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.2, response for the request for a report on the feasibility of developing stage 2 of the Moonabilla Industrial Estate. Councillor Truscott, you're moving this. Councillor Chapman, you're seconding it. Do you wish to speak to this?
Just to say, I think it's good that we've got it to this stage with the advocacy plan, that we can now try and gain further attention from state and federal to get funds to keep it going. It's a great industrial estate out there that's just growing from strength to strength. I'm looking forward to seeing it continue to grow.
Any further speakers or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to support this also, though Councillor Truscott and myself in the 25th of January 2023 actually brought this resolution to council. And it's about the need for the growing industry that we've got around Maryborough and what's happening around this area. And so we just look at the councils to support this because industrial land is very important to grow a fast-growing community. So I will be supporting this.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.3, response to report request to consider the provision of a lease to the Maryborough Regional Arts Society, either on Kent Street facility known as Creative Arts Space or Customs House, pages 178 to 181. Councillor Truscott.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a motion as detailed in the run sheet as the first alternate motion. I just noticed, however, though, just to make a slight amendment to it, it says that council offer a lease of the building known as the Customs House on the corner of Kent and Richmond Streets to the Maryborough Regional Arts Society. It should be Wharf and Richmond Streets. That's all right. I just noticed it there and thought, I better just clarify it for the minutes. And then, yes, the rest of it is as per the run sheet.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Phil Truscott. Do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say that I think this is a good outcome. It may not be the perfect outcome, but I think it's a good outcome. We're all very well aware of the situation that the Maryborough Regional Arts Society find themselves in presently, and that they won't have a home for too much longer. That's a bit how long's a piece of string at the moment, but we know that it is coming to an end. I think this is a good use of the facility that we have there at Customs House, and that it will be an open space for people to come and see the art gallery and see the Customs House in the same process, so that it's actually open to the public after the works that have happened in there, to be able to allow public to actually come and use it, and to have a home for the Regional Arts Society who've been in Maryborough for generations. And like I said, I think they do a great job, and I'm not knocking them. I think it's a good outcome, not necessarily the perfect outcome.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask a question to Director Carline. Director, could you outline what the current plan and usage is, putting this motion to one side, the current plan and usage is of the Customs House building?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Cosgrove, and through you, Mr. Mayor. And it's a really good question, because the building looks like it doesn't have a purpose or a use, because it has been closed for multiple years. The historical use of the building has been as part of council's museums, offerings, and the proposed use which had been to the previous council was for that to continue. So the plan which the previous council had endorsed was that we would use it as essentially the home of the 3,000 odd objects that we have in our museums collection. At the moment, we've got them across, I think, 5 different sheds. So the upgrades which my colleague Director Parsons' team have done to the building over the last couple of years have installed climate control, so that, as you would have seen when you visited there, it keeps humidity between 45 and 55%. It's the only building amongst the museums collection that actually has the capacity to look after our collection appropriately. So what that previous plan was for us to move the collection in, for us to use it as a space where we conserve, but to have it an open living collection where things would be on open shelving, people can come through and see the collection, as well as to use some of the space for pop-up exhibitions. So the first one that was has been booked was a film/exhibition with Uncle Glenn Miller, based on the new monument which went into Queen's Park last year. So that was what was going to be the first, sort of public pop-up exhibition. We obviously put all of that on hold. That previous council, what we briefed the previous council on when we originally got this motion, and then went down that path. So we'll have to, come up with a different plan for those 3,000 items. There is some concern about that, like we have, I think the team have so far assessed about 1,800 of those, and got them into our eHive, which is our online system. About 243 of those are what we consider in good condition. So a lot of our collection is really poor condition. And interestingly, we have 43 items which have high significance. Only 2 of the high significance ones are in good condition. So, we've got stuff out in sheds in St Helens, we've got stuff in hire sheds in Maryborough, we've got stuff in sheds out in Wookoo. So we haven't progressed that plan, which went to the previous council because we were considering, this alternative use. It is probably the best building, for the alternative use in terms of an art gallery. It's probably the best building we have for an art gallery. So it's a very good building after the works which have been done by the property team for either an art gallery use or a museum use.
Councillor Cosgrove.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I'd like to speak against the motion, and in doing so foreshadow an alternate motion, which I'll outline if we get to that point. Essentially, I completely agree with the merits of finding the Maryborough Regional Arts Society another home, but I worry that we are making essentially a reactionary decision to the use of the Customs House building, which is actually a separate issue in my mind to reacting to what's happening with the MRAS. So I just don't want us to jump ahead when we do actually have time, to my reading, as they continue to have an option to have their building they're currently in. Obviously, that could potentially be sold at any time, but my worry is that we're making a decision about this historic building when there could be possibilities to look at, potentially a hybrid model where the Art Society could use the building for, half the month or what have you, but ensure that we still allow other worthy uses of the space. So that for those reasons, I think that council should consider potentially deferring this matter. The correct use, once we look into it further, may be putting the Maryborough Regional Arts Society into the building, and I'm comfortable with that. I think that would be a worthy outcome, but I just want to make sure that we essentially get the decision right and we maximise the use of this community space to the benefit of all residents.
So further, is there a speaker in favour?
I have a question.
I have a question.
Okay. All right, Councillor Farage, you got a question?
My question was to the director. Could the Maryborough Arts Society sort of coexist in that space with the 3,000 museum items that we have, or is that not possible?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Farage. I don't think as a full-time tenant that would work. The building's not actually that large, so I think it's council's ultimate decision, obviously, but I think we're at a point where we need to say, okay, we're going to use it as the previous plan, as a museum store display, pop-up space, and that's the way we go forward as part of the museum's collection. Or if we don't do that, I think we need to start the process of deaccessioning a lot of those artefacts, because it doesn't really make much sense to just leave them in sheds in perpetuity, and lease it to the Maryborough Arts Society. So I actually think we're at an inflection point where we need to choose. There are other options. Council could say, directly go and find us an alternative space for the museum's collection. So there are things. I suspect they'd be much more expensive, and we've just spent several $1 million getting the Customs House ready to fulfil that museum store display purpose. So those works were done with that purpose in mind. It could work very well as an art gallery, as an alternative use.
Just before we go to the next question, Councillor Cosgrove, you said you were going to foreshadow an alternate motion. Just checking with the minute taker, and you didn't actually do that? Do you want to formally foreshadow?
Do I need to read the?
We'll just indicate what it was. Yeah, read it. Yeah, well, if you can just say what's on the run sheet, we'll just indicate it.
So as per the run sheet, that I will add a point 3 to that, which is provide a report back to council with options for the use of the Customs House building, including options to house the Merrimah Regional Art Society.
Mr. Mayor, is a foreshadow motion, CEO?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'm just a bit concerned that the motion that originally was put may be inconsistent with the standing orders, and I just, to make that determination, I need to ask the Director of Strategy Development Community, just 2 quick questions. If the motion that's been put by Councillor Truscott is successful, will it require additional disbursement of funds to hire spaces to store those 3,000 collections that haven't been accommodated in the budget or future budgets?
The answer is maybe. That I don't think that causes to be inconsistent because we could put it in sheds that we have. We could store stuff in the depots. They're not ideal solutions, but
so there'll be no additional disbursements of funds associated with Councillor Truscott's resolution. Then complies with standing orders, Mr Mayor.
Councillor O'Keefe.
Okay, just a process question. So we've got 2 alternate motions now.
Only one?
No, we've got the motion. There's one motion and one foreshadowed motion.
What about the officer's recommendation?
Nobody's foreshadowed that.
Okay, so if both of those don't get up, should someone foreshadow the officer's recommendation?
You can only have one foreshadowed motion at a time, though. So if this first one failed, somebody could foreshadow another one while we're dealing with the second motion.
Yeah.
through you, Mr Mayor, I mean, it's a business as usual facility which council owns. In the absence of the motion failing and there being no outcome, we would continue on with the previously endorsed process.
I'm just going to ask a question on that. At what stage did we determine that it would be used for storage? But I just don't see it in the report when that came to us, that we made the decision to deviate from the museum that it had been for about a decade or more to having a storage component.
Yes.
When did that become part of the business as usual?
So I'd have to, through you, Mr Mayor, I don't want to give you a specific date because I literally don't know and I would actually have to go and check. There was, it was an iterative process. There was briefings, there was some that came to ELT, there was some that came to council. So I'd take it as a commitment to actually find those specific dates. And then, through budgets and the like, those things were approved through Keith's department as well.
Yeah, I understand that you must have sought and received budget funding to put in the storage shelving and other stuff. I think that might have slipped to people's attention that it was being that something that had been a museum was somehow transferring to more of a storage space.
So and maybe I'm positive we have not been clear. So I apologise for that because I think there seems to be a disconnect that people think, storage as in, at the moment, the things are stored in sheds. When the plan for the Customs House is for an open, publicly available storage, conservation and display space. So it's not, as when we took councillors through the facility and we just showed them the one little room we had set up with the artefacts on shelves and the like, that, I don't want it to be, people to think that means that it's not accessible to the public. This is about making the collection accessible to the public. At the moment, they're stored in 5 different locations, inaccessible to the public. The plan with the Customs House was to make that collection accessible to the public, to conserve it, to have it in temperature controlled conditions, to also have a component of areas where we work on the collection and we conserve it and we maintain it, as well as to have pop-up exhibitions in that space. So it's not a closed storage space, was never the plan. It was to store the collection in an open, accessible way, which it currently isn't. And we obviously haven't made that clear.
So I suggest that storage then is probably the wrong term to describe it, because I think storage anticipates that there's going to be boxes full of artefacts that people won't be able to connect with or see.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's not the case.
Through the facility to short, we only had one room because when this original motion came, we put the project on hold while we went down that. But when we took councillors through that a couple of months ago, we showed that back room, which clearly demonstrated that it's, you know, the things were open, on open shelving, available.
I mean, it seems like, I think, it has been sort of sold as storage. I mean, so in a lot of, like you go to museums and a lot of the real, people are very fascinated in the back of house stuff and seeing conservators work. There's a whole floor at the State Library where you can see documents being restored and conserved. Are you saying that we would employ a conservator that could give tours and showcase people, and do we even have artifacts like that? I mean, I didn't think our collection, I can't think of anything in our collection that would warrant that type of interest.
So, as I said, like the team at the moment, they've been doing the project for, I think, the last 2 years of assessing the collection, trying to get it into our eHive system. They've currently got about 1,750 of them into the eHive collection and been assessed. There's another 1,200 odd items which haven't been assessed. There's about, as I said, 43 which have been assessed as high significance.
Can you give an example of one of those that would be of interest to somebody see?
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm happy to bring back that information. When we actually did take councillors through it a couple of months ago, there were some of those items on the shelf. Some of them are trinkets that you would see in other museums. Some of them are documents as well as historical artefacts. Part of the process that originally came to council as well was to actually determine it is likely that there's a whole range of these things in the collection which probably shouldn't be in the collection, and that we would potentially seek to deaccession.
Councillor Vernon?
Yes, I just had a question through you, Mr Mayor. It's for Director Parsons actually. Should Councillor Truscott's motion not get up, would it be fair to say that if the Arts Society chooses not to take on the building, which is still their option, will it go back out for public consultation, or will we go to our alternate use that's already there?
So I can respond to that. If Councillor Truscott's motion is not adopted, then the Customs House would be used as it's currently being planned to use to display our artefacts. I haven't used the word storage because I think the word storage is misleading. It will be used to display our historic artefacts. If Councillor Truscott's motion is successful, well, those historic artefacts will simply be stored in boxes in sheds.
So should the Arts Society not take it on, it stays as is, we don't open it up to anybody else to have option to lease the building, is that correct?
That's right, that's correct.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, as you said, the storage is misleading. Is it misleading to say they're on display? Are you anticipating that this is going to be open, like on a daily basis?
No, the previous advice that I think came through briefing notes and through discussions with councillors that it wouldn't be open on a daily basis, but it would be open periodically.
So to make it clear, it is storage, it is display, it is conservation. Our museum staff, the way they term it is that it is collections management, storage and display facility. And it would work in conjunction with the bond store, with that whole museum's precinct. As I said, we already had initial pop-up. I know we had the Uncle Glen Miller one already booked, and I think they had a second one booked as well. The plan was that when that is open, people will also be able to go through the other rooms where we would have our items on display. In terms of how often we have that open, that becomes a staffing, a volunteer, a strategic discussion that we take moving forward. Ideally, the staff would have all our facilities open as often as possible, but that's not necessarily always available to us, given our own staffing requirements as well as our volunteer load.
Any further speak, Councillor Sanderson?
Through you, Mr Mayor, probably to Councillor Truscott, Deputy Mayor, would you be willing to possibly at a point 3 to your motion to include that if it is not accepted, because I'm not against having an art group or community group use the building, but to me, we haven't gone out to the whole community to try and get the best use of that building. So if they don't accept, would you be willing to add a point 3 to say, we will go back out to expressions of interest to the community for use of the building?
Through the mayor, no, because we just got given indication that wouldn't be the case, that if they don't accept this offer, then it would go back to council use.
That's right, but I'm asking that it possibly be used for community use.
I don't think it would have any other good community purpose than, like we heard from the director about how it's built for a gallery basically. So I think it wouldn't be suitable for something like, as an example, the women's shed or something. So I think this is the kind of perfect community group that would be suitable to that building in my mind.
Any further speakers or questions? So we're dealing with Councillor Paul Truscott's motion. There is a foreshadowed motion by Councillor Cosgrove, which we will get to if this motion does not pass. All those in favour of Councillor Paul Truscott's motion, second Councillor Phil Truscott. Is that favour or 2? 7-3. All opposed? 3. That's carried 7-3. Sorry? So I can count it again, but Daniel and everyone on this side.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, I miscounted.
Yeah, sorry. That's carried 7-3. The next item is 11.3.4, Adopted Infrastructure Charge Resolution, pages 182 to 237. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Chapman, seconded Councillor Phil Truscott. Any speakers or questions? Councillor Cosgrove.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll be speaking in favour of this motion. Just wanted to highlight on page 184 and just read from the report. Noting the charges paid by developers rarely cover the full cost to council and the community of providing trunk infrastructure, and in periods of high growth such as that being experienced at present, the shortfall required to be subsidised by the general rate can be significant. This is an area of great interest for myself. It's an area that I think we need to look at continually and make sure that essentially, you know, if you could lay out all the nuts and bolts to a general rate paying member of the community, it would pass the pub test. It's a very complex issue, this, but I have a feeling if you had an hour to sit down and go through the ins and outs of this with most people, they would come to the conclusion that I have, which is we need to essentially charge developers as much as they can. I get the housing piece, but we can also look at ways to exempting and incentivising to make sure that our housing mix is right. We have essentially a working group that's being established, which I'm happy to essentially I will be a part of. But look, you know, when you're considering houses that are worth, you know, 800 and 1,000 and beyond, a couple of $1,000s I don't think is an argument for housing affordability. What we can do is we can have fees set higher, I believe, and then create an incentive program, and that's something that I hope this council will look at down the track. But for now, I'm happy with any increase, such as the one that we're voting on today.
Any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion on.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
I'd just like to speak for it as a movement. Councillors, I think this is a great incentive here that the council are actually reviewing this. We know that the cost of putting infrastructure in the ground has actually gone through the roof with the cost of materials and concretes and labour and everything like that. This by moving this up a little bit higher is not really helping us the full benefit to what we really require as a council. But it is a help, and I think every little bit is a bonus. This is something that's the industry must look at and must accept, because we've, as a council, as we all sit around, we've got to look at doing budgeting, and I feel this is part of it. So I'd like every councillor to support this motion as read here today. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.5, the Regional Arts Development Fund Committee member appointments. I understand, so you're moving this, Councillor O'Keefe?
Yeah.
And so what are you putting in point two? Which I understand is Councillor Govers?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
happy, I'm happy to nominate
Yeah,
myself.
so the point, so just to be clear, point two would say, instead of one councillor, appoint Councillor Govers. Does that work?
Yeah.
Yep. Is that, Councillor Farage, are you seconding that?
Yeah.
Yep. Any speakers or questions? Councillor Farage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the chair of the Regional Arts Development Fund Committee, I'd like to publicly thank Councillor O'Keefe for his service and time to the committee, and also welcome my colleague, Councillor Govers, to the committee. It's a great committee, and yeah, I look forward to achieving what we can up until the 30th of June 2025.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor O'Keefe?
Yeah, just by way of explanation as to the reason for my resignation. I was recently elected chair of a newly formed Wide Bay Resource Recovery Steering Group, and so I've taken on that extra responsibility. Councillor Govers has put her hand up to take on the arts role for me, so thank you very much. But yeah, just by way of reason, that's the reason. Thank you.
Any further? Councillor Chapman?
Mr. Mayor, I wish Councillor Govers all the best in her new position. I originally was on this committee at the last term, and arts is a big part of our community, and I'd just like to thank the council staff also for the work that they're putting together. And what we did see is at the last term is collaboration of trying to get some events and working with tourism and what art's all about for our region. And I just wish you all the best on your role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Further speakers? With the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.3.6, the tender award for the Harbour Bay Aquatic Centre redevelopment, section 1B. This is pages 240 to 252. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne, any speakers or questions? Councillor Cosgrove, and if it relates to confidential matter, we can move into confidential.
I don't think it's confidential. I think the director potentially knows what I'm going to ask, and I don't think it is, no. I just wanted to clarify, essentially, for the sake of the public, there's numbers outlined here, but could you just tell us?
Councillor Cosgrove, and it is good because this only deals with 1B, it could create that misleading impression. So the state government contribution to the entirety of stage 1, 1A and 1B is $3.5 million. In order to get that $3.5 million, we had to spend 2.37 at a minimum. We did not spend that much on 1A. If you look at their contribution and our contribution, 1A was just less than 5 million. So the entire project is about 10 million. 3.5 of that coming from the state government, 6.5 across the two stages coming from council.
Any further speakers or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Opposed? That's carried unanimously 8-0. The next item is infrastructure services, 11.4.1, strategy to enhance transparency of mowing schedules, pages 253 to 256. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Govers. Is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne.
You almost got there.
Any speakers or questions?
I'd like to speak to this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank our infrastructure services and open space environmental teams for your work on this new strategy and mapping system. This initiative will bring real improvements to both our community's understanding of mowing schedules and council operations. With this system, we'll be able to keep the community informed about mowing schedules and make it easy to track progress, which is especially important in our wet season, which is when the community is mostly concerned and when we have an increase in inquiries to council and councillors. Our council teams will be better equipped to respond with clear timeframes and monitor performance in this area. It's a smart time management choice. It's a practical step that will make a positive difference for our council staff, but most of all, our community. Thanks again for your well thought out plan and recommendations, which I fully support. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Farage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to echo the sentiment of my colleague councillor members and thank the staff for their time and their innovative thinking with this motion, and also to Councillor Gobes as well, because as we were elected, we were going through a period of very wet weather, and so the grass was growing faster than our staff could mow, and I think this is really, really good moving forward with the inevitable weather that we're having, and so that the staff have peace of mind when they're going out to do their jobs. So thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Chapman.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to support this motion here. But what I'd actually like to thank is the management for introducing these systems, but also the staff on the ground, the mowing staff. Change is a big thing within a job and within your day-to-day runnings of what you're doing. And with technology, it's something that we're all getting more and more brought onto us about. But it's all about looking at efficiencies and showing the public where we are and what we're doing and everything like that. And some of these new systems are coming in, do feed a fair bit of data back into the system. And I'd just really like to thank the guys out there that are the sweating, the guys that are doing the mowing. Thank them for accepting the systems that this council are bringing in. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. I don't think you voted. Okay. Item 11.4.2, the intersection upgrade of Woods Road and Chapel Road, Madsen Road, 257 to 270. Councillor Chapman, are you moving this?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to speak for this motion. This is a much needed intersection that's right beside the Fraser Coast Sports Precinct out on Woods Road. There's a lot of traffic that uses this area because of the infrastructure that's been refurbished all over the Fraser Coast, and so this intersection we greatly appreciated when completed. I'd just like to thank the community up front for persevering with the closures. There's going to be road closures to see this happen. And I know that the burden that I'm going to cop from people that can't drive down a road. But can I just say to you earlier that there's always interference, like when you've got progress, there's always going to be road closures or some sort of interference there. And I'd just like to say to these people early, it's part of building roads is you just can't be on them when they've got machinery. So, but I'd really like to see this, once this is finished, it'll help the congestion of especially people on a Saturday morning leaving the sports precinct, and it'll help the flow of traffic as our infrastructure team have said that it's much needed, and I really appreciate this coming on within this budget. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor O'Keefe.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to echo my colleagues' sentiments there and thank the public for their patience. They have been very patient. As a parent who has taken their children out to the sports precinct to attend different events, it's been incredibly frustrating having to sit at that intersection for sometimes up to 15 minutes before you can clear it. So definitely echo the sentiments and thank the community for being patient. We are very close.
Any further speakers or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 11.5.1, the Burn River Weir speed limit reduction. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Byrne. Is there a seconder? Councillor Farage. Any speakers or questions? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to firstly thank the Water and Waste team for their efforts and their success actually in the community consultation. Having witnessed it firsthand, they really did a super job. But I'd just like to point out that the primary reason that we're proposing this for Maritime Safety Queensland to implement this speed limit is about our water quality in the dam as well. That's our first priority. The second priority, of course, is public safety. There's a lot of submerged trees, logs, sticks and things like that that were never cleared out when the dam was built. So we have an increased use of jet skiers and motorised vehicles on that particular part of the dam at the moment. So this policy or this recommendation is actually only bringing the speed limit up to the same standard as all our other public dams and facilities. So I'd just like to speak in favour of it based on that.
Any further speakers or questions? Councillor Chapman.
Mr Mayor, just a quick one. I'd like to thank Waibo Water and the council team for the consultation that was actually done there, the presentation on that consultation. I questioned on the how much consultation was done the other day at the meeting, but it was answered to me, and I'd just like to thank him for putting it out to the public. Thank you.
Any further speakers or questions? Put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. General business, is there any general business? Late items, item 16.1.1, the organisational performance report. This is in supplementary agenda number 1. Are there any questions on this for the officers? If not, is there a mover that we receive a note? Councillor Govers, seconded Councillor Byrne. Any speakers? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 16.1.2, the disposition of the Duncan Chapman Avalon, is it Avalon or Avalon? Avalon. Is it Avalon or
Avalon Bronze. I've never heard anyone refer to it as Avalon Bronze in my life. That since it's been there, it's always the Duncan Chapman statue. I'd feel more comfortable. I know it's probably nothing, but just that if it actually said the council donate the Duncan Chapman
well, it's your motion, so
statue, Avalon Bronze statue to the Maryborough State High School.
So I guess basically in the second, so after Avalon Bronze, the original.
The original statue.
The original Duncan Chapman Avalon Bronze.
Correct,
So you include
the original Duncan Chapman Evelyn Bronze statue to the Maryborough State High School.
Yeah.
Just so it's really clear to anyone reading it in the public, because I don't think anyone has ever called it Evelyn Bronze.
No, nobody has.
I'm sure it might be a technical term, but yeah, that's...
Well, through you, Mr Mayor and Mr Derek Mayor, that alternative is fine, but Avalon's the company that made it. So that essentially determines that it's that one, not the other one.
Yeah, but nobody knows that,
Yeah, just for the clarity for the people reading the minutes in many years to come, to go...
I guess, I mean,
Put in brackets.
it'd be more clarity would be since replaced or...
The one that got flooded.
The original, the council donate the original Duncan Chapman...
And maybe original and since replaced.
And since replaced Duncan Chapman Evelyn Bronze statue to the Maryborough State High School.
Is that acceptable to the seconder? Do you wish to speak to this?
Other than that, I think, look, it's a good outcome, that it's still going to have a life somewhere, whether it be at the school and then potentially on loan elsewhere through their plans, but that's on to them. And at least it's still out there because it was fundraised by the community, so I think it's, and then donated to the council, so I think it's great that it still has a second life out there, and we have the new statue to replace it, which looks fantastic.
Which we got from the state government.
Yes, and thank you to all involved.
Is that, further speaker?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the school for taking this on, and in a new location where they place it, it may maybe give people, you know, see it and think about the history of the what's set up in Queen's Park in Maryborough, and might bring visitors into the region. Thank you.
Any further
I
speakers?
just want to make note of the subject line, disposition of the Duncan Chapman Avalon bronze. It's not, doesn't really give an indication as to what the subject is. I struggled with that one, and I wondered whether we were going to talk about Duncan Chapman's disposition.
Yeah, I actually looked up the definition of disposition, and there are a couple of meanings, and this actually is the correct meaning. So I thought they misspelled dispossession, but you can't have a cheery disposition, but you can also say a disposition in terms of removal and
Disposing.
yeah, and deaccessioning, is the term used.
That is correct, Mr. Moore, through you, Mr. Mayor. When the report came to me, I was going to change it, change that word, and then I thought maybe the arts people have a broader vocabulary than me, so I went and Googled it, and it is a relevant term that I was unaware of.
Yeah. I've never heard anybody use disposition.
At least it's not in the
standard.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important though, because, you know, often people only read the subject
Yeah.
lines. And so if you can't get your subject line right,
Gifting, I like.
It is right, it's just you need a very broad and diverse vocabulary to recognise that it's right, and I did not have that.
It's not commonly used.
And with that, can we fix up this, the typo in the, because the company is Everlong, not Everlong, yeah. Okay, any further speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 15.1, and if people need to move into confidential to raise any matters or speak to any matter, we can do that, just indicate you want to move into confidential. Pages 315 to 323, land acquisition. Is there a mover for this? Councillor Farage, is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne, any speakers or questions? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Item 15.2, land acquisition, Nissen Street shared pathway, pages 324, on page 324. Is there a mover for this?
Stop the microphone.